everyone. Tera Roberts here bringing you free agency deep cuts for week 7. And I'm sure we are all in need of some free agency deep cuts this week because it is a huge bye week. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. There's a few directions that you could go when streaming quarterbacks this week. Mac Jones, Taylor Heineke, Daniel Jones as well. But Jimmy Garoppolo facing Indianapolis might be the way to go here. The Colts defense is actually not a bad matchup. It's a very middle-of-the-road defense that is vulnerable to big games. Jimmy G is very capable of taking advantage of that. He's that quarterback on waivers to go and grab if you need someone that you can rely on to get you a certain amount of points and not put your fantasy team in an awful position. He's the safe and reliable option for this week. Moving on to running backs, these options might sound a little bit dirty on paper, but I don't hate them on such a crazy bye week where we've got several of our top running backs out. First up, Devonta Freeman. It's not looking good for Latavius Murray, and Devonta Freeman is in fact the next man up. Freeman saw a decent amount of carries last week in action in week 6 with 9 carries for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. Tyson Williams has faded out of existence, and Freeman has the leg up on Le'Veon Bell. And quite frankly, Freeman looked good last week. If Murray doesn't play and it's looking like he's not going to, I'm comfortable with putting Freeman in my starting lineup if I'm in a pinch. Another option for this week is Ramondre Stevenson. He's someone who I had my eye on last week if Damian Harris couldn't go with injury concerns. Harris did play, but Stevenson did see some action on the ground with 5 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown, but that's not what I like here. Harris is healthy and set up to have a great game against the Jets, but last week, Stevenson caught all 3 of his targets for 39 yards, and Brandon Bolden wasn't a factor like he had been in prior weeks. If Stevenson can claim that pass-catching work out of the backfield, he can be a usable asset even when Harris is healthy. Moving on to wide receivers, and a lot of these names are familiar from prior lists because we've basically reached that point in the season where we've probably streamed these players at some point, dropped them, and now are doubling back onto waivers now that we have bye weeks coming up. Amanra St Brown is the epitome of one of those guys who just floats around off and on rosters. It's not going to be pretty because the Lions are not a pretty team, and the yards per catch are not going to be far because it's Jared Goff. But for the past 3 weeks, St. Brown has caught 18 of 23 targets with increased snap counts. He's a solid fill-in option. Another option at wide receiver is Zac Pascal. It's very simple with Pascal. Paris Campbell is out, possibly for the entire season. T.Y. Hilton led the team last week in his return from IR, but he is questionable this week. Pascal might be back to his early season wide receiver 2 role in that Colts offense, making him a viable fill-in option. And one more receiver for this week is Van Jefferson. It's a revenge game for Matt Stafford and technically for Sean McVay in a weird way as well because of his grudge against Jared Goff. Teams just opt to run on Detroit because, well, it's easier. But I cannot imagine in this scenario that McVay and Stafford don't want to show off in this situation and let the ball fly. And if the ball flies downfield, Van Jefferson is someone who can benefit. And after 2 very subpar games, he's due up for a big play. Moving on, this is a horrible bye week for tight ends if you have been playing the waivers like me. Several waiver wire darlings and streamers are out this week. I never thought I would say this coming into the season, but what am I going to do without Dalton Schultz? Well, don't worry. Have no fear. I've got you covered. At tight end this week, let's go with Cole Kmet. Kmet was in line for a breakout year this year. Very much like every other Chicago receiver, it's actually been far below expectations. But better days might be on the horizon for him. Justin Fields' attempts are still pretty low, but they did go up last week, and Kmet caught 4 of his 5 targets for 49 yards. Chicago faces a Tampa Bay secondary that has been reeling, and if they opt to let Fields attack the defense through the air, Kmet can be a big beneficiary. And that wraps things up for this week's free agency deep cuts. I hope these options help you out through this crazy bye week. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, good luck with your lineups, and I will see you again next week.